Good afternoon, and welcome to the Voice of Wisdom. With over 60 years of experience as an investment banker, entrepreneur, investment analyst, economist, and venture capitalist, Morty Davis is Wall Street and capitalism personified. The over 400 companies for which he has raised more than $3 billion over the years have created a countless number of jobs and exciting new products. Through the Voice of Wisdom, Mr. Davis explores, analyzes, and debates the most topical political, economic, and social issues facing our world today. Joining Mr. Davis today for a discussion on the Republican debate and Republican candidates for president is Len Carter. Len is an experienced investment banker, business consultant, and private investor. And now, Mr. Davis and Mr. Carter.
Welcome back, my most cherished guests, partners in this podcast. I love you all. I'm sorry that our discussions often get you depressed, because anytime you discuss politics these days, it's either very depressing in terms of the outlook, or it's very depressing because of the confrontations you have with your own members of your own family, some of your best friends. So one of the solutions for you all is get a copy of my recently new published book, Happiness Guaranteed or Your Misery Back. This is it. Happiness Guaranteed or Your Misery Back. And because I love you all, I'll just give you a quick suggestion how to be somewhat happier, or a lot happier. You really have to learn to love yourself and to appreciate yourself and treat yourself well. By treating yourself well, I don't mean, get yourself an ice cream sundae for lunch and a quart of ice cream before you go to sleep, and all kind of goodies that are counterproductive to your happiness, ultimately lead to problems. You should think of yourself in these terms. If you had a best friend and he was going through, or he or she were going through some terrible experience, they lost their loved ones, or they lost their job, or they got hurt, or some very big disappointment. What you would do is, if they're really a friend that you cherish and that you really want to make somewhat more, at that time you're not going to make them happy, but to deal with the problems in a more constructive, less depressing, less discouraging mood, or evolution of their mind, of their emotions. So this is what I would do, and that's what I think other people that love a friend and really care about them, is you'd stop off and visit with them, and you wouldn't say forget about it, or don't worry about it, it's going to pass. You say, Morty, my heart really goes out to you. I know what you're going through, and it hurts me almost as much as it hurts you, and it's something that's part of life. We all go through it, but I know you have so much going for you. You're such a wonderful human being. What you have to give to the world in terms of positive contributions in every segment of your life. Just when you come out every day and you visit with people, your smile brings happiness to the world. And to get them off what they're thinking, all the depression, you start to talk to them about, remember, Morty, you and I still have a date to go skiing in Vermont in December, and try to get them into some positive thoughts about the future beyond what they're going through right now. And I tell you that story or that approach because that's the kind of thing you should treat yourself the same way. Become your own best friend. Love yourself more than anything. It builds confidence in you. It makes you more effective. And there's nothing more helpful than giving somebody a pat on the back and a pep talk. So do that to yourself. Give yourself a pat on the back. Give yourself a pep talk, and then go do something to take you, if you can, off this issue that you're dealing with that's overwhelming your mind. So when I'm going through a very depressing, or I go through something that is hurting me as I think about it, think about it this way. If you go to a vacation and you have a horrible time, you never go back there, right? But if you have a terrible experience, if you lost a job or you lost some major part of your savings or whatever negative you could think of that really depresses you, we tend to go back to that thought. Our mind wanders back to those kind of thoughts. So the minute that happens, shift gears and do something that makes you happy this instant. For me, I run down and get a chocolate sundae with whipped cream and nuts and chopped nuts and a cherry on top, and I feel a lot better instantly. But you can go out and watch a movie, watch Turner Classics that has some of the greatest movies ever. Go out and have lunch or dinner with your best friend. Tell them you're going to treat, and you really want them to join you. Read a book. Do something that makes you happy. Go out and play tennis or golf or something, and that takes you off that mood. So my advice to you is love yourself. Nobody's going to make you love you as much as you can love yourself. Don't be selfish in that sense, because the more you love yourself, the more you can give to others. Anyway, the subject today is...
and if you ever get too happy, then you can, turn on the TV news and watch the politics.
Right. Which is the subject today.
That's a very sure way of bringing yourself down.
That's my way of introducing my great guest today, Len Carter. He's a genius. He's a graduate of Harvard Business School, and I love him. And generally, he agrees with me. So when I want to have a program that's new, not too contentious, with someone that doesn't beat me up too badly in a debate, I invite Len Carter. So Len, we're going to talk about the Republican debate last week that had a big audience turnout. So it shows that people, even though it's far away, usually most Americans don't get interested in the presidential election, or any election for that matter, till maybe 2 months before the elections. Now a lot of people seem more interested because Trump makes it interesting, and the Democrats make it interesting, and the debates between them or the disagreements between them are worth listening to, or if they're not worth listening to, at least you can turn them on and be assured that you're going to be absorbed and depressed.
I mean, during the 4 years of the Trump administration, every day someone in the news would say, "This has never happened before in Washington. This is new. this is unprecedented.
Right.
And I think this
It's still happening.
this debate is no exception. It's probably as far as I know, the first debate where all the candidates running for president were not there. You know, Brett Barr had a good line. It was an hour into the debate when he said, well, let's finally talk about the 1,000-pound elephant that's not in the room.
No, but what do you mean all the candidates that are running weren't there?
But there was one who wasn't there.
Oh, the most important one.
When
No,
have
but
you
you
ever
said-
had a debate?
You said all the
I'm
candidates.
saying all of them weren't there. There was one missing.
No, all of them were there other than the
saying-
main one.
But that's not all of them. There was one missing. All of them were not there. When has that ever happened?
I guess you're saying.
Where this...
Because I thought all of them were there. Not all of them were there, you're saying.
It's the first time where all of them were not there, which is...
No, the way you're saying it now, all of them were not there is not accurate.
Yes, it is.
All of them were there except the main one.
That's the same thing as saying
No.
all of them were not there.
No, if you said not all of them were there, that would be correct. Not all of them were there. But all of them were not there is definitely incorrect.
All were not there.
No. You understand what you
We get
mean,
the point, but
okay.
yes.
Yeah,
There was one missing, which has never happened before. I mean,
Right.
in a debate, generally, the candidates running attend.
no, I think there was one where
Someone sat out early on.
put a chair there
Oh.
and to talk to them.
Why would they, was it a
Well,
protest?
yeah, no,
Too
somebody
far ahead?
refused to come, and so he put a chair there. He decided to attend. I forget who it was, but it was to make the point that the guy doesn't want to debate me or something, and he had less confrontation with the chair than what he would have had.
Although in this case, even with Trump not being there, he still got his share of airtime.
Yeah. He gets his airtime every single day. There's not a day that, whether you like him or you're going to vote for him or not, when he's gone, I'm going to miss him, even though I don't plan on voting for him, because every day that I turn on either CNN or MSNBC or NBC itself or Fox, it's some major issue regarding Trump that's very intriguing and very even exciting or aggravating. but he's the subject of the news and kind of entertainment. And once he's gone, I'll turn on those stations and all they'll talk about is Ukraine and Russia and I don't know what they'll talk about.
So we'll talk about the issues that came up, but first maybe let's start looking at the landscape of the 8 different candidates. So they were positioned, they said, in order of
From the center
from the
out.
center out based on where they were in the polls.
Right.
So in the middle, you had
DeSantis.
Ron DeSantis, who's been the favorite before Trump for many months, and just had his landslide re-election in Florida.
They were in the favor before Trump.
The favorite
Next to Trump.
Next to Trump. Yeah.
But a long way off.
Still. And then the guy next to him, you had who described himself as a skinny guy with a funny last name, Vivek Ramaswamy.
Salami, yeah.
And the only one, I guess, without any prior political experience.
Very young, 38 years
38. He went to Harvard and a Yale law student. I guess he couldn't get into any good schools. So then started a biotech firm, and I just was reading a little bit more. I didn't know this before the debate, but he started an asset management firm
Yeah.
called Strive Asset Management, which specialized
In
in
biotech.
anti-woke asset
Oh,
management,
really? Oh.
refusing to consider environmental, social, and corporate governance. So, just the opposite of
sus-
like BlackRock.
I
Getting
suspect that
into-
90%, I suspect that 90% of Americans don't know what woke is. It's a new word that has evolved from primarily, I think, from DeSantis, who says teaching history that includes slavery should be what do they call that?
Critical race theory.
Critical race theory. That we shouldn't teach that.
His famous line is he declared Florida as the state where woke goes to die.
Yeah.
So, but I think, yeah, I mean, a year or two ago, woke was not a commonly used word. Now,
Oh, it was
very common.
it might have been, I don't know, it might have been used in some fashion, but not in politics. Nobody, and not even woke. Maybe I was a woke, but woke itself. But he's made it, and he's built on that because he says books that teach about unpleasant subjects or controversial subjects or even depressing subjects,
He's
things like LGBTQ or about transgender
identity.
should not be taught particularly, and I don't
He's very
disagree with him that it's inappropriate to teach it to young kids
well. He in Florida, it's been banned through high school.
through high school.
Through high school. So, and he's very proud of that elimination. I mean, it's one thing to teach elementary school kids about
Little kids,
transgender, but 18-year-old high school kids, I think is probably different. But he's quite proud of that and
And he's banned books.
positioning it at
He's banned books that
and made
bring
it a
up,
crime. I think teachers, it's a crime in Florida for a teacher to teach what's not allowed to be taught. And so teachers are very nervous because if they run afoul of this law, they could be fired, they could be held in arrested. I don't know what if it's a misdemeanor, but it's definitely a crime.
I can't remember a time when books were banned in the United States. That's moving towards fascist countries. And also the African American community is really fuming at his approach that history in America shouldn't include the period of slavery when they feel they were such a major factor in helping to build the United States, even as workers without pay. But also he adds recently that the slaves, their grandparents, benefited from slavery because they learned skills. So some of them might have learned skills, but that's hardly a good reason to
Endorse slavery.
Right.
I think he definitely said, and maybe all the other candidates as well, want to eliminate the Department of Education and somehow redistribute those funds back to the states, whether that's in the form of vouchers or some form of, funding private schools or parochial schools or something like that, which, is a pretty big dichotomy between more, not even liberal, but I mean, public schools are kind of a moderate view these days. They might have, so, to try to eliminate those.
What do the Republicans want to do with that money?
Somehow remit it back to the states. The view is always the states.
If they're going to do it, they should remit it back to the teachers who are so underpaid relative to the work they do and the important role they play. We have teachers that are very qualified, that maybe the best teachers, that get up and leave teaching because it hardly pays more than, or even a living wage, much less more than a living wage, and they're professionals who should be paid maybe the most because we're turning over our future generations to them. So we pay lawyers a lot more, we pay doctors a lot more, we pay engineers a lot more, all because they have college degrees and they're useful. But I can't think anybody that's more important or more useful than teachers, and they're not well paid. And
the candidate on the stage on that subject, most hostile to teachers' unions, was probably Chris Christie, because he made a point to highlight his record in New Jersey of pushing back on the teachers' unions, saying that they were putting themselves before the students and eliminate tenure and all the things that people against public schools and teachers unions would say. On that education topic, they were pretty consistent. No one really, I didn't think, had a view much different from any of the others. They all seem to have the same typical conservative playbook: woke, bad, parents should be in charge because they know best, which I don't think is a bad thing. Parents should have a say in what the school curriculums are. In the same way that it's ironic, because here's DeSantis saying you can't teach this, which is in a way the same overbearing as you have to teach this.
Mm-hmm.
If he were hands-off Republican, like most claim to be, then you would let the states or the districts or the parents decide
the free market.
Right. So if parents want to teach critical race theory, if a district wants to teach critical race theory, then the argument would be let them, because that's what it means for parents. So he's sort of talking out of both sides of his mouth, because on one hand he says, I'm not going to, parents should have the right to have the curriculum they want. And then on the other hand, he's telling them that they can't have the curriculum because here, I'm going to tell you what you can't have. I may not tell you what you can have, but I'm going to tell you what you can't have. So.
Yeah, at certain times when I listen to some of the Republicans that are against regulations, so many regulations, they want to eliminate the Federal Reserve. Yeah, Powell, what's the name of his group? Is that the Federal Reserve? Or?
That's the board, yeah, the bank. But the whole group.
Yeah, what's it called? Anyway, they're for eliminating the Department of Education, the Federal Reserve, so many different rules that we have on the books. You'd think that the country will, from when you watch the attitude towards regulations, you'd think they entered office after generations of fascists or dictators or some that imposed these rules, these regulations arbitrarily, instead of to attempt to deal constructively with issues that were facing the nation. And so, the wholesale elimination of regulations is really very destructive. Even now they want to eliminate all control of guns, give you the right to carry guns without any clearance, without any, and they refuse to impose any regulations on the gun industry or the National Rifle Association, when every single day we have an average right now of 2 mass shootings. This year we've had over 400 in about 200 some odd days. So it comes out to 2 a day. That doesn't include all the murders that are individual murders, or all the major cause of death for children is guns, where they mishandle it, where their father mishandles it, or they leave it laying around and the kids get a hold of it or take it to school as a toy. So they're against regulations that could help, and so many regulations that are imperative,
There wasn't much discussion about guns.
There wasn't much discussion about policies.
Yeah, because,
I mean, other than
they're all pretty, they're probably too similar, and
that's what I found wrong with the whole thing. There was not one of them had a platform that said, these are the policies that I'm going to effectuate, and maybe this is how I'm going to effectuate them. The one thing you could be sure of is they're all interested in cutting taxes, because the people they represent primarily, that's maybe their most popular issue. But I didn't hear them talk about how to deal with health care, how to deal with
right. I mean, they had to really just sort of fine tune, like even on abortion, every candidate is pro-life.
Yeah.
And it was just really a degree of sort of how much you are. And, the governor of North Dakota had to, what's his name? Doug Burgum. He said the only issue they could really debate was, should there be a federal limitation on abortion, not whether it should be, just should the federal government be involved. And some of the more staunch supporters like Pence said absolutely yes, because it's immoral. He said it's a moral issue, and Burkham said it's a state's issue. I mean, that was the purpose. It's sort of ironic that the whole much of the argument for overturning Roe versus Wade was push it back to the states. In fact, that's what Nikki Haley was saying.
If she came through,
this is let's not demonize this issue. She said
she's for
whatever people
pro-life.
do.
No, she's for pro-life, but we shouldn't handle it as if it's
right. And she's accepting that different states will, because the people feel differently, do that. Unlike Mike Pence, who says, no, I don't care what other states or other people think. My faith tells me that this is wrong and there needs to be a federal. So it's kind of ironic, because the argument for overturning Roe versus Wade was often made. It's not overturning, it's not eliminating the right to abortion. It's just pushing it back to the states and let the states decide. Now, once that's happened, now we're going to go one step further and do exactly what we said we didn't want to do, which was have the federal government say yes or no. It's okay for the federal government to say yes or no, so long as it's no. So long as it's what I want the answer to be, then it's okay
Now
for the government to get involved in people's lives, so long as it's
Right.
the way I want the government to be
Think of
involved in
it,
people's lives.
think of what follows from what we just said about regulations. The Republicans want to cut out all regulations, you know? But the thing they want to regulate is a woman's right. So that's the most intrusive thing. They make a big deal about the fact that the Democrats, in many cases, even support abortion up to the, and there's so few of that, and many of them,
And I don't know
many
if that's
of
true.
that
Is that
has,
true? I mean, that seems to be a
it's a
boogeyman
very
that keeps
small,
coming up,
it's a tiny number.
except for the life of the mother.
Yeah, and it's a tiny number, and it's usually the life of the mother or the child is so convoluted, and it's. But I'm saying here they're against regulation, and here they want to impose regulation. So you know, if you listen to the what they stand for over and over again, and very few of them deviate from this. We got to cut taxes, even though it's gotten to the point where all the cuts that could be made are made. Because I think you pointed out that 83% of the cuts that Trump, this is considered one of the great things he did during his administration, when he cut over $1.5 trillion of taxes. 83% of the benefits of those cuts went to the top 1%. Top 1%. And that means 17% went to the remaining 90%, 99%. And if you went, probably, that was the 1%. If you went to the top 10%, they got essentially all of the benefits. So they're always, the themes are cut taxes, but it's always cut taxes for the rich. They even want a few of them on that panel during the debate suggest we get rid of the IRS because they're just intrusive and they only help to collect taxes from people that don't pay taxes, which are usually the biggest earners, because the little guy can't even hire, doesn't have the money to hire, it's not going to make any big impact by hiring experts to fight their tax. So it's, all the things they want to cut out are things that were introduced because they were considered worthwhile at the time. A lot of them are now, in terms of discussing we got to get control of the budget, of the debt. So instead of saying, well, one of the ways to do it is to pay for it by finding more taxes. That's the best way to pay for something. Now with their approaches, we got to cut food stamps and social things that are so popular, Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid.
Although
I don't know, that they demonstrate any values at all. Show me whether somebody wants to spend their money or remove the money, and I'll show you their values.
Although I might not agree with what he says, I think Mike Pence does have I can appreciate his argument the most on the abortion issue, because instead of trying to argue about when is right, or it's a federal right or a state's right, his issue is it's moral. And in the same way that we wouldn't say, well, states can decide if murder is legal, there's certain things that are not to be decided by states. Or if everyone in a particular state said voted, referendum, murder's legal, does that mean it should be legal? So that's his argument. If everyone in California votes that abortion should be legalized, that's like voting murder should be legalized, which he would say shouldn't be. So I actually can appreciate his argument as opposed to all the other ones that kind of make some kind of federal and this and that and state.
I would respect him for that, and I do respect him for keeping Trump for overriding his mission to Congress to merely deliver the votes that certified Biden's being elected. So I can appreciate that. And I appreciate anybody that wants to do something for moral reasons. But if he really cared about moral reasons, morality, he would do something about Eli Lilly. It cost him $2 or $3 to make, what's it called, for diabetes? Insulin. And after a big fight, they decided not to cut it to $35 a month, the availability, when it should be, as it is in every other country in the world, no more than $10, and in some cases less than that. The morality of they find morality, and the morality of having the gun lobby and the gun manufacturers and retailers and wholesalers sell assault weapons that every day are killing people. It's great that he takes it as a religious issue and a moral issue, but where's his morality and all the other things that are going on?
It's also ironic that what should be his strength, his biggest plus and biggest strength to voters is in a test of character on upholding the Constitution, which is the oath that the president takes, that he really demonstrated his willingness to do that. What should be a very admirable thing that he did, you could tell the problem that he has is that there's so much of the base who think he did the wrong thing. And you can even see, like, the audience were booing him. And
right.
Like when Chris Christie said that, I don't care, it doesn't matter if he's convicted or not, Trump's behavior was beneath the character of the President of the United States. He got booed for saying that.
Yeah.
Booed for saying that's, or when he said the President should be a role model for our children.
Yeah.
Booed. So when Pence says, that President Trump asked me to put himself over the Constitution, and I picked the Constitution, all the other candidates agreed, but they couldn't really say it too loudly. In fact, when they were talking about, I think one of the questions to the candidates was, did Mike Pence do the right thing? And most were yes, 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 and then DeSantis was sort of didn't answer the question, and then they pushed him on it. You didn't answer the question, and then he said, "Well, yeah, he did the right thing," but that's not really the point. It's really because to get he realizes how do you they want to uphold the Constitution, but they upset the base.
Yeah.
It's all about how do you not lose votes.
Yeah. The interesting thing was when the interview was asked, put up your hands. There were 10 people there?
Eight.
Or eight people
if
there.
Trump were convicted,
If he were,
convicted,
right.
Would you still support him?
Right. And then quickly, 5 of them put up their hand. They said, if you watch it, when they show it, they said DeSantis looked around, didn't put up his hand, and then he looked around
Yeah.
at his
Yeah.
left,
Yeah.
and everybody
And
put up their
Christie
hands.
raises
Put
it
it.
like halfway like this, like, and then shakes
I
his
don't
fingers.
think, yeah,
And
Christie.
then the only one who didn't raise his hand at all,
Yeah.
intentionally, was Governor
No,
Hush.
Christie's
He went
said it over. No, but he said it.
like this.
He's articulated
Well, that's why he-
regularly that he shouldn't be. He wouldn't vote for him.
But that's why he was like halfway with
Yeah,
the
but the most
finger.
interesting thing is Trump himself never agrees to, even in 2016 when he was debating Hillary, the interviewer said, would you,
Accept the results of the election?
would you,
Yes, if I won.
yeah. Would you accept, the results? Would you back the
Well,
results? And he said, yeah, I would have, if I win.
And then
And
in
even
the next
and
debate, though, when he debated Biden, they asked him a similar question.
Yeah.
And he basically said no, that it's gonna be, if that happens,
I think
it means it's rigged.
now he says no regularly. Even if it's a Republican, he won't. He wants to see who it is and what it is. In other words, he's not, unless it's him again, all the rest of them are objectionable. I don't know who he would think is. I think the one that Trump liked the most was that Vicky Salami. What was his name?
Vikram Ramaswamy?
Ramaswamy.
Yeah. Because he said he'll pardon Trump.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, I'll pardon him.
Yeah.
He said,
A lot of them said they'd pardon him.
I mean, he's not trying, he's not really trying to distinguish himself other than we need a younger person, but
Yeah.
I'm 100% behind Trump. I'll pardon him. He did nothing wrong. Which, I mean, that's a hard way to win a nomination, but there's no way to win a nomination, because if you try to set yourself aside like Christie does by going anti-Trump, you lose the base. If you try to not lose the base, then you wind up just supporting
Yeah.
Trump, and then so you're supporting your opponent. So how do you expect to
But-
win a nomination
yeah, but
if you support your opponent or alienate the voters?
The only one.
That's why
No, but
all
the
eight
only
of
one.
these guys are doing
The only
it.
one that's doing it is Chris Christie, because the only way you could win is if you could overcome Trump's lead, and if you don't somehow beat up on him,
But
undermine
he's
him.
learning that doesn't work either, because the price you pay when you do that is
Oh, yeah,
you lose the base.
yeah, he's got
So
no- he's got no-
if you want to
He's
keep
got no
the
shit.
base,
But I'm
if you
saying,
want to keep
no,
the
but
base,
for all eight of them, if they have to say, they could say nice things about Trump, he was great, he was this, but he's not the right guy at this time, he's too old. You got to do something, and they won't do that, because it's like, if you're endorsing him, well,
Why are you
why are you here?
That's right.
Why should I vote for you?
why are you running?
Right.
That's why it's a fool's mission, because none of these guys really stand a chance. The only thing they can do is like immigration, they all agree it's a mess and it's Biden's fault. So it's just now you have 8 candidates all saying agreeing it's Biden's fault and it's a disaster. So then the only way to separate yourself is how harsh you want to be. So like this, they asked DeSantis, well, would you send troops down? Would you send federal troops down to the border? And he said, absolutely.
Right.
Because it's like an invasion. It's an invasion.
He's like Trump in that sense.
So-
He's decisive. But it's interesting because the one thing that got most people still don't realize it. I think they start to realize it. The thing that won for Biden and the Democrats in 2020, when it was supposed to be a landslide for Congress and the Senate, was eliminate this. You got to be careful what you wish for, because all these years the Republicans were eager to eliminate Roe Wade, eliminate. They're overwhelmingly pro-life. So they finally got what they wanted, and that is what cost them.
Yeah.
And
you need a boogeyman.
Right, and I would say, strategically, if I were Biden, I would make, because that's the thing that hurts him the most. The thing that got, I believe, that got Trump elected in 2016 was beating up on the boogeyman, on all these immigrants that are coming and selling drugs and so
Taking
forth
your
and so.
jobs.
So, if that's the issue, don't do the same thing that the Republicans did with abortion. I would say, I'm going to put up a wall. I'm going to make an entry. I'm going to let them in. But I'm not going to let them into the country. I'm going to build a place where they can stay till we clear up their names and see if they're good people. If they're good people, we want them. One of the best periods of the United States that stimulated, sparked the growth was the periods in the late 1800s, early 1900s, when we left in immigrants by the millions from Italy, from Germany, from Poland, from all of Europe. It's true, they were mostly all white, but at least it wasn't there wasn't this kind of major resistance, and they became major contributors. The only thing I would say is that I'd like to see happen is for these people ultimately to get truly integrated. In order to become a full citizen, you have to learn English. You have to speak English. And that's not an excessive burden. And also, we should even choose immigrants, because we kick out people that come here to study and get PhDs in important subjects and would be able to make major contributions, and because they haven't got the permanent status to stay here, they leave and go back to their own country or other countries that make them offers. So there's ways to deal with immigration without saying Mexico will pay for it, I'll put up a wall, but start to show that you care and you're dealing with the issue up. So it wouldn't be such a major issue against you. Just as I said, if I were him, if I were Biden, I would make a big deal out of my taking the United States out of Afghanistan, because what's his name said it, Bush said it, he would do it, and Trump said, not Trump, Trump said he would do it and didn't do it. Nobody ever did it, and he did it. It's true, it was mishandled, that a few people got killed, we left out a lot of military equipment, but we don't even mind that, because that's good for the business of, the major business of the United States, producing more military equipment. But so it cost us military equipment and a few lives that day. Maybe even a few lives after that, but it's much less than if we stay there and keep on staying there. With the blood and the treasure would still be.
And it's the same, so you need a boogeyman point. They all have the same boogeyman, China.
Yeah.
So now Trump did the same thing in 2016. There's, it's China is taking our jobs, and they're the bad ones. So you need to have this point of focus to get people rallied against. Not an uncommon thing in the history. There's
Yeah,
Countries have been
Trump,
vilified,
yeah, Trump,
races have been vilified.
Trump
people have been-
introduced protectionism. He put tariffs on goods from China. If anything, if I had my druthers, I would like to figure out a way to become closer to China, to work with them. We're all imperfect, you know. Every time it's interesting, every time a country catches a spy, they say, oh no, he's not a spy, they should let him go. I never saw a country that said, oh yeah, you caught a spy, you caught him. So we know they're spies, and we know that we send over people that look like they shouldn't be spies, they're innocent. So it's the same with all this behavior. We act contrary to Adam Smith, to the success of capitalism, which says that let the person that makes it the cheapest, the most efficiently, the best product, let him make it, and you make the things that you make best, and then you give him what you bother him, or you give him money, and the money is the currency in which you could make it equal, but it's so outrageous. I think one of the main reasons we had inflation was because we stopped getting all the goods from China. But also the technology. They developed good technology. So we were always making a big deal. They're stealing our technology. We're stealing their technology too.
Another common chorus that we heard was inflation is the Democrats' fault. Spending. All the trillions of dollars of spending. One of the moderators did point out, I think it was to Mike Pence, by the way, under Trump, you had $4 trillion to the deficit. Wasn't that a lot of spending?
The largest amount ever.
Pence mumbled a little bit. We were backfilling on the military.
The largest amount ever
of what Obama did.
And also because of COVID.
But
the largest amount ever in 4 years.
Do you think, and I think this is where I criticize the Biden administration and just being terrible salesmen. How is it if inflation's really Biden's fault and in spending, why is it that every other country in the world has inflation, if not worse?
Worse than, yeah.
Is that did somehow Biden manage to cause inflation in those countries too? I mean, the obvious answer is it's not it's not because of US policy alone, the way Republicans would like people to think, because if it were, then we can fix it. Unfortunately, I don't think anyone can fix it like that, because it's a bigger problem having to do with supply chains, oil prices, and it's a much bigger global problem, which is not really 100% to blame on any administration. So this
I blame it on all the administrations, because we let OPEC get away with murder.
Yes, but that's
we let them fix the supply and the price.
So if you're going to be telling me as a candidate for president how you're going to fix inflation, telling me you're going to cut U.S. spending is not. That's not going to do anything. It's not going to work, because that's not what caused it in the first place. Yeah. Cutting spending here is not going to change inflation globally. There's many more factors involved in that, which I think the Biden administration has just done a terrible job articulating that fact. It's not very complicated economics, but no one knows it. Everyone equates inflation with spending. Inflation, spending. Don't spend, you have inflation. But that's not always the case, because it's much greater issue that has much more, and then you can just see it, because inflation's an issue around the globe. Tell me every single country is doing the same spending as the U.S.? No, So it's just another boogeyman that is
No, the
something
interesting,
to point at
the interesting thing is, and I thought he was a great president too, Ronald Reagan. But Ronald Reagan convinced, or the Republicans are convinced, or the nation is convinced that Reagan followed the Republican policy of
small government
smaller
and
government
less spending, which he did.
and less spending. Yeah. So he increased the deficit, and notwithstanding increasing the deficit and the debt, he cut inflation. So Volcker cut inflation by policies, not of the Federal Reserve. What's he head of? Powell. He's not head of the Federal Reserve. He's head of the. They often say they want to eliminate the. I think it starts with a P. Where's my phone? Have you got your phone? Let me have it.
He's the chair of the Federal Reserve.
Oh, what? He's the chair of the Federal Reserve?
Yep.
Oh. Anyway, they're always saying they want to eliminate the Federal Reserve because the Federal Reserve forces policies that often limits spending or encourages spending, and it serves a role. These regulations were introduced because they were dealing with problems. Were they always perfect? No. And maybe some of them should be changed. Just like the Constitution, it's certainly far from perfect. We treat it as if it was handed down from God, but it's used in a way that whatever a political view is, they use the Constitution to support that political view. So if they want more guns and they want to let the gun lobby have free distribution of it's a miracle that back in 1935, I think it was 35, maybe 1 or 2 years either way, that the United States successfully outlawed machine guns, and it never came back, and it's not a problem because there was no reason for people in society. You don't hunt with machine guns. And yet today, the Republicans are totally bought off. They're bribed by the gun lobby not to interfere with that holy Second Amendment that doesn't even say everybody. It doesn't say every woman, every man, it's outrageous.
Well, we're almost out of time, so let's just look at one last question, which is back to the 1,000-pound elephant that wasn't in the room. Was this whole
No,
debate
this week he only
waste?
weighed himself.
Yeah.
He was 240 pounds, I think.
But is this whole Republican debate scene a moot exercise, given that Trump's lead in the polls is as massive as it is, and nobody on that stage the other night is even 10 arms lengths away behind Trump? And do any of those guys have any glimmer of hope, or is it just completely purposeless?
It's possible if somebody wins big in Iowa or New Hampshire and starts to get a following as a result of that. It's feasible that, and maybe the effects of all the indictments and so forth, it's feasible that he could be overtaken by somebody. But at this juncture, it doesn't seem like any of them. If anybody has a chance, it might be Nikki Haley, and that's a very long shot because she's down at about 8% or something, 10%.
I guess most of those guys, or all of them, including Nikki Haley, may realize that. And I guess the next best thing is vice president or 2028.
They say what's his name's target is to win Nikki Salami or something. Shalami.
Is to be VP?
It's to be VP. Or even some of the others. As a matter of fact, there was a mayor of one city today who resigned. He was trying to be president under Republicans. He didn't even reach the threshold to appear in the debates. So he finally signed, but he said he's going to work for others for the Republicans to win. But right now, you'd have to bet that it's probably going to be Trump over Biden. And, Biden is pretty old. He could live another 25 years, but he could die in the next 12 months. And then who would the Democrats put up? Then it could change the equation quickly, because even though it's a short period of time, in politics it's like years. Hillary Clinton was way ahead, and at the very last moment, the guy from the FBI, Comey, came up with she's guilty. Never happens. It's not supposed to announce it till there's some finding that she wasn't indicted or anything, but it rubbed off on him, on her. And also, Trump is a much better salesman, because the motto he came up with, making America great again, is fabulous compared to what she had. No, do you remember what she had? What her motto was?
Stronger together.
Yeah, stronger together.
But none of these guys the other night had any mottos. They're not. And Biden doesn't have any motto. There's just that's where they.
That's why Trump is still way ahead.
Well, the good news is at least we'll have topics for the show for the coming months and years probably, but that's all we can talk about tonight.
Well, the trials that are going on are interesting. What's his name that testified yesterday? Meadow testified for 4 or 5 hours, and his lawyers, I think, were against it. Everybody that I listened to says it's stupid for him to do that.
He's trying to get his venue changed, no? He's trying to move to federal court.
But, giving testimony, he says a lot of things that maybe are okay, but you don't know. They could be used against him. And it may be that he's already flipped against Trump in the other case, so he could maybe get off or look to get off it. I think it's going to be rejected, his appeal to move it. But even if it's moved, it's still the same district attorney that's going to handle it. He may get a better shot at a few conservative on the jury, and even if Trump beats it and a jury votes against it, the government, but it'll take time, but the government will surely go after him again.
All right.
Is that time up?
Yep,
Anyway, I want to thank you all for participating with us. Send me your thoughts, whether you agree or disagree. I appreciate your wisdom. I'm the voice of wisdom, but the collective, you, all of my listeners, have a lot more wisdom than I'll ever have. So God bless you. Have a great week. Have a great every day of your life. And Tune into the Voice of Wisdom, 6:30 every Wednesday evening. Have a great week. Bye.